भिड बिथो लियो के भिड बिथो लियो नि त अनि आने यता भिड बिथो लियो के केटाहरुले ओली सक्यो मान्छे त बच्चा यस्तो छ पुलिसले लुक एट यतिसम्मको लापरवाही गर्नुहुन्छ त है सरकारले
Nepal, September 8, 2025. On the streets of Kathmandu, GenZ protesters call for change and are met with tear gas and live fire. Over the next few hours, 19 young Nepalis, including a teenager wearing school uniform, are shot dead by their own security forces. Anger at these deaths ignites a second day of protest. And this time, it cannot be contained. Drawing on more than 4,000 videos filmed on the streets, testimony from police and protesters, and an exclusive leaked record of police radio, BBCI pieces together a forensic account of the most dramatic 2 days in Nepal's recent history. We reveal how Nepali authorities lost control of this protest, who gave the order to open fire, and ask how Nepal's police, army, and politicians failed a generation desperate for change. Behind those 48 hours of rage and bloodshed lay years of quiet frustration. Nepal abolished its monarchy in 2008 after a decade-long civil war. In 2015, a new constitution promised a fresh start. But 10 years on, that promise has not yet been realized. Around 1 in 5 young Nepalis are unemployed. For millions, migration is the only option. The country remains mired in debt and economic dependence. On the face of things, government shifts between the 3 main political parties. But for many young Nepalis, the same group of elderly politicians cling to power year after year. 26-year-old Rakshaban is one of the many Gen Z students who feel democracy has fallen short.
नेपाली जनताको बलिदान, उनीहरूको संघर्षको उपलब्धि र भविष्य आज एउटा व्यक्तिको अहंकार र कुशासनको बन्धनमा छ। सौदेखिको हामीले जुन अनुहारहरू रिपिटेडली हेरिरहेका थियौँ, ती अनुहारहरूले हामी प्रति गरेको जुन व्यवहार थियो, त्यसप्रति हामी एकदमै आजित भइसकेका थियौँ कि हाम्रो पुस्ता बनाउन अझै, किनभने उहाँहरूले सडकमा के भइरहेको छ, सडकको आवाज के हो भनेर बुझ्नै खोज्नु भएन कहिले पनि। नेपो बेबीवाला जुन ट्रेन्ड चलिरहेको थियो संसारभरि नै, त्यो नेपाल पनि आयो। हाम्रो नेताहरूको जीवनशैली, उहाँहरूको छोराछोरीको जीवनशैली र हामी आम जनताको जीवनशैलीमा चाहिँ यत्रो ठुलो असमानता रहेछ।
We wake up, work hard, pay taxes, but those in power, they keep on stealing.
त्यो भइसकेपछि सोशल मिडिया ट्रेन्ड चाहिँ त्यही अनुसार चल्छ नि त। विभिन्न नेताहरूको छोराछोरी अथवा नेताहरू एक्सपोज हुँदै थिए।
It is time we call out these people and make these people feel accountable for their choices.
That message struck a chord with millions of young people, like 17-year-old Shriyam Chaulagai, known as Bunku to the family, who joined the debate on social media. He often took his parents, Ganesh Chaulagai and Ganga Karki, by surprise.
म यसो कुरा घरमा गर्थेँ नि आज यस्तो भयो उस्तो भयो के बाबा कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ यस्तो कुराहरू हैन यस्तो कुरो नगर्नु यिनीहरू सबै फडा हुन् फडा खाइसके देश सकिसक्यो भन्ने खालको कुरो चाहिँ गर्थे उले हरेक न्यूज हेर्दो रहेछ के उले त्यो कुरो मलाई थाहा थिएन म भन्दा धेरै अपडेट हुँदो रहेछ न्यूज हेर्न
On the 4th of September, alarmed by the scale of dissent voiced online, the government took a drastic decision.
Now, news from Nepal, the country has cracked down on a number of social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, LinkedIn.
Last night, poof, the platform, it's all gone.
Online, this conversation was blazing.
We have so many problems in Nepal, but they think, yeah, let's ban social media. Yeah, that's going to fix the country. Yeah, why are these idiots running the country?
Doesn't that seem like a coincidence? It feels kind of shady. Like the platform that people used to criticize the rich, spoiled kids just got banned right when it was starting to trend.
But in the halls of power, Nepal's political establishment was in a state of denial.
जनताको समर्थन हामीबाट अलग भएको हो सही निस्क्यो कि हामी जनताका बीचमा आशाका केन्द्र
Even as the speeches went on, the ground was shifting. Despite the government ban, Gen Z found other platforms like Discord and TikTok to share hashtags and memes, channeling their anger over corruption and poor governance.
Sri Lanka did it, Indonesia did it. Of course, we are Nepali, we are Gorkhalis, we also can do it, guys. Let's raise our voice together.
Within days, plans for a nationwide protest were circulating. A Discord server, Youths Against Corruption, emerged as the central hub for coordination and discussion. Organizers agree on a meeting point, 9 a.m., Maitigar Mandala in central Kathmandu. The next morning, Raksha is on the front line.
आज हामी सार्वजनिक सम्पत्ति नष्ट गर्दैनौं शान्तिपूर्ण तरिकाले आवाज उठाउँछौं त्यसैले सबजना हामी रेडी छौं आजको प्रोटेस्टको लागि We are ready!
At around 10:30, the crowd moves forward along Madan Bhandari Road. Government intelligence had predicted 3,000 protesters, but tens of thousands turn out. Many are wearing school uniform, believing it might offer a kind of protection. The protesters are heading for Nepal's parliament. But before they get there, they hit a barricade. Some 200 police are now face to face with thousands of protesters. And the mood starts to turn. At 11:47, a group of demonstrators finds a way around the cordon. The police, taken by surprise, abandon the barricade. And the crowd surges towards Parliament. The organizers had called for a peaceful protest. But already, this was getting out of hand. The tragedy that followed was captured in more than 4,000 videos and pictures taken by journalists, bystanders, and protesters. We spent months collecting and analyzing this evidence, as well as sourcing exclusive accounts from police. We can now bring you the most detailed account yet of exactly what happened on September 8th at the gates of Nepal's parliament. At 11:58, protesters face off against armed police. Most of the crowd is peaceful, but at the front line, tensions spill into violence. Some protesters climb onto the roof above the entrance gate to Parliament. At 12:15, one group breaches the wall. They're quickly pushed back by police. On Discord, some protesters start to worry. In the crowd, we spot Shriyam. He's here against his mother's wishes.
जान्छु भनेर अघिल्लै दिन उनले भनेको थियो भन्न चाहिँ नभनेको होइन किन जानु पर्यो यस्तोमा के हुन्छ पर्दैन जान भनेर भने अनि अब हामी जेनजी केटाकेटीको ड्रेसमा जान्छौँ हामी माइनरलाई कसैले हात पनि लाउँदैन.
He's holding a banner that reads, "Youths Against Corruption." But not everyone is as peaceful. At 12:30, a curfew is declared. The gathering is now illegal. Word spreads from phone to phone. But the curfew seems to make things worse. Police fired tear gas and rubber bullets. But their response is chaotic. Some even throw stones back at protesters. Seeing the gatehouse on fire, panicked officers radio for help, asking their superiors for permission to use live ammunition. We know this because the BBC has obtained a leak of the police radio log that day. This document has never been made public. It reveals that it's now at 12:40 that the authorization to use force is given. That order marked a turning point. Over the next 2 hours, at least 6 protesters will be shot, 5 of them fatally. We're going to slow down here and show you the details of those shootings. The first takes place at the corner of the parliamentary complex. The victim is 34-year-old Binod Maharjan. We found no video of the shooting, but at 1:15, we see Binod carried away with a critical injury to the head. He dies later at hospital. On Discord, news of live fire spreads quickly. And on the streets, anger escalates to fury. The police are overwhelmed. One group is cornered outside the gates. At 1:42, our police timeline records the panic among officers.
Police bleeding profusely and about to be killed. Shooting at main gate may be necessary.
The assault lasts for 4 minutes. Eventually, they use tear gas to drive back the crowd and retreat into the grounds of Parliament.
Guys, लोग परिवर्तनको लागि यतिको क्रान्ति खोजेको थियो सायद देशले गोली बर्सात भइरहेको छ थाहा छैन कतिजनाको मृत्यु भइसक्यो कतिजनालाई घाइते भएका छन् हैन एक पछिबाट हेर्ने हो भनेदेखि चाहिँ पुलिसहरुलाई पनि बिचरा माया लाग्यो.
The next order to come through police radio is unambiguous.
Open fire to establish safety. Regain control of situation.
The next person to be shot is 27-year-old Kamal Ghimire. At 1:48, we find him on the opposite side of the avenue. This is the view from Kamal's own phone. He records a group of police officers, at least 2 of whom are armed with handguns. Kamal then walks away from the front lines. His camera captures this man throwing a stone at police. And then Kamal falls. We have found another view of this incident. Here is Kamal, the man throwing the stone, and the moment Kamal is shot. His medical report states that the bullet entered beneath his left arm and exited through his back. We do not know the precise trajectory, but we can see the general direction from which this bullet was fired. And it points toward the same group of police Kamal Ghimire had filmed just moments before. The bullet missed Kamal's spine by millimeters. He survived. At almost the same moment, 200 meters to the west, another young man is shot. This is 22-year-old Rashik Khatiola earlier in the day. His t-shirt says, "We want leaders, not looters." We do not know exactly when Rashik is shot or from where, but at 1:53, a protester's phone captured these images of Rashik being carried away with a bullet wound to his chest. He died of this injury. He was 22. By this time, accounts on Discord are urging demonstrators to leave. But 24-year-old Sulav Rajshrestha stays at the Parliament gates. He's carrying a sign that says, "No more corruption." We see him here, wearing the blue backpack, observing the confrontation at the gate. Seconds later, just a few steps away,
look at it.
Sulav is dead. Realizing that he could not be saved, protesters carry Sulav to the gates. They lay his body on the road, directly in front of police, and cover it in Nepal's flag. Among those who witnessed the shooting was 17-year-old Shriyam Chaulagai, the boy in school uniform. Minutes later, closer to the junction, we catch Shriyam again. Ahead of him, a group of protesters is pelting the police with stones. Shriyam turns away from the violence and moves back towards the junction. These are the last steps he takes. Moments later, another phone captures images which go viral across Nepal. Bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound to the back of the head, Shriyam is carried across the road. Bystanders lift him into an ambulance, but it's too late. By the time he arrives at the National Trauma Center, Shriyam is dead. He's the youngest victim shot outside Nepal's parliament on September 8th. Nepal's GenZ protesters have always maintained that Binod, Rashik and Shriyam were killed by police, but none of those shootings was captured on camera. The next person to be killed, Yogendra Nupani, is shot just a few steps away. And this time, we have the clearest evidence yet that, as Yogendra fell, shots were being fired from inside the grounds of Parliament. Just 90 seconds before this shooting, vlogger Nishad Dahal turned his camera towards the grounds of Parliament. Pay attention to this group of police officers. At exactly 2:21, they move towards the wall, separating Parliament from the street. Seconds later, we hear 7 gunshots and see Yogendra bleeding to death on the ground. This camera angle does not reveal who shot him. But we found another clip of the same moment, filmed from a few steps further along the pavement. At first glance, there is no more evidence here. But if we zoom in and stabilize the footage, we can clearly see gunshots. 15 seconds later, a third camera captures what appears to be the same group of officers moving towards the corner of the grounds. This is the clearest visual evidence we have found indicating that unarmed protesters were shot dead by Nepali police from inside the grounds of Parliament. Protesters took what cover they could find. Yogendra died of his injuries. He was 24. In the footage investigated by the BBC, neither Yogendra nor any of the other victims we have examined was engaged in any violence. According to official figures, 19 young Nepalis were killed in the protests on September 8th. A further 300 were injured. So how did the police come to fire on their own citizens? According to our police sources and the leaked transcript, the order came through police radio from call sign Kilo 1.
हाम्रो केही साथीहरू गम्भीर रूपमा घाइते भए हामी मध्ये एकजनाले उद्धारको लागि भन्यो किलो 1 बाट गोली चलाउने आदेश आयो.
Kilo 1 was Bishwa Adhikari. the officer in charge of Nepal police operations in Kathmandu that day. But Kilo 1 was not at the top of the chain of command. The police log reveals the first order to use force came from a more senior officer using the call sign Peter 1.
Curfew already in place. No further need to obtain permission. Deploy necessary force.
Peter 1 was Chandrakubir Khapung, Nepal's most senior officer, the Inspector General of Police. He has denied responsibility. Nepal police told us the decision to use force came from a committee made up of Nepal's main security forces. They said IGP Khapung did not issue the order to use force ahead of the committee's decision to do so. Other police officers have admitted to failures in intelligence, training, and direction. They also blame the army for failing to support them. But most are haunted by what happened.
त्यो दिन भिड नियन्त्रण गर्नुको सट्टा हाम्रो टिमले उनीहरूलाई शत्रु जस्तै ताकेर गोली चलायो.
Later that day, Shriyam's dad got a call no parent wants to get.
त्यसो त बङ्कुलाई ट्रमामा ल्याएको रहेछ. ट्रमामा आउनु पर्यो तपाईँ भन्नु. एक ठाउँमा अलिकति भिडभाड थियो के गेटदेखि अलिकति ओरा. के को भिडभाड रहेछ भने यसो उठेर हेरेको त नेम लिस्ट टाँसेको रहेछ. चाहिँ 1 नम्बरमा श्रेम चौलागाई भनेर. घरमा इन्ट्री हुने बित्तिकै वाइफले के सोध्यो भने अनि बिरामी लिएर आउँछु भनेर जानुभएको बङ्कुची खै त तपाईँ एक्लै आउनुभयो त. अनि मैले ट्रिटमेन्ट हुँदैछ चोट रहेछ ट्रिटमेन्ट हुँदैछ एक्लै उसलाई किन छोडेर आउनुभएको त ट्रिटमेन्ट भइरहेको बेलामा भनेर भन्ने खालको क्वेसन गर्यो. होइन तर म ठगिरहेछु होइन म कसरी बसेँ होला.
But despite the slaughter, the Prime Minister dug his heels in.
अब धेरैले चाहिँ नि प्रधानमन्त्रीको राजीनामा तत्काल चाहियो भनेर प्रमुख प्रतिपक्षी दल लगायत
सडकमा बसेर मागेर त्यति मागेर भएन नि प्रधानमन्त्रीले अहिले राजीनामा दिनु.
Faced with such intransigence, some protesters began to suggest a different approach.
त्यो रात चाहिँ कहिले बिहान होला र कहिले फेरि यो सरकार विरुद्ध यसले उचालेको कदम विरुद्ध फेरि सडकमा जान पाइएला भन्ने बिहानको प्रतीक्षामा थिएँ म.
As dawn breaks, the fury ignites. At first, Nepal's authorities had a plan. Regular police units would contain the crowds, backed by the armed police force, with the army held in reserve. Security forces are deployed in and around the parliamentary complex. By 8:30 a.m., a curfew is imposed. But the crowds do not back down. Again, Raksha is among them. This is the view from her phone as protesters move towards Parliament. By 9, things are getting ugly. Crowds morph into mobs. Targeting the police. The homes of political leaders. Government buildings. And even private property belonging to those perceived to be close to power. The violence circulates online in real time. The police are outmanned and overstretched. Officers say the support promised by the armed police force and the Nepal army never arrived. At around 1, the police appear to give up the attempt to control the mob. This video, posted online but quickly deleted, shows police being told to prioritize their own safety. With the police in retreat, chaos reigns. Nepal's parliament, left undefended, falls to the crowd. By 2, it's under their control. Within minutes, the building is set ablaze. Crowds breach the Supreme Court and Singadarbar, the historic compound housing most government ministries. Army helicopters circle overhead, airlifting political leaders from burning homes to safety. By 2:30 that afternoon, the Prime Minister and most senior political figures are under the army's protection. Senior police officers also take refuge in the military compound. Rank and file officers left on the streets are now targets. Some are stripped of their uniforms and publicly humiliated. One junior officer told us he felt abandoned by his commanders.
कनिष्ठका रूपमा आक्रमणमा परेको बेला हाम्रा वरिष्ठ र नेतृत्वले साथ दिन्छन् भन्ने अपेक्षा थियो, तर हामीलाई एक्लै छोडियो। आवश्यक कदम चालिएन। हामीले आफूलाई अभिभावकविहीन महसुस गर्यौं। उनीहरूले आफूलाई त जोगाए, तर के गर्ने, के भइरहेको छ भन्ने बारे हामीलाई जानकारी समेत दिएनन्।
There are widespread allegations that thugs and infiltrators in the pay of political groups were behind the violence. We can't rule that out, but we found no concrete evidence. Violence spreads beyond Kathmandu, across the country. Finally, in the early afternoon, Prime Minister Oli resigns.
एक हिसाबले लाग्यो कि हामीले देश अब हाम्रो भयो हैन, हामीले यस्तो अहंकारी, यस्तो सरकारलाई घुँडा टेकायौं भन्ने खुसी पनि थियो त्यो बेलामा, र एक प्रकारको हामी वेदनामा पनि थियौं। हामीले आर्मीलाई रिक्वेस्ट गर्यौं, प्लिज है अब यस्तो तपाईहरुले रोकिदिनुस्, तपाईले कन्ट्रोल गरिदिनुस् भन्ने खालको, यो पीस मेन्टेन गरिदिनुस् भन्ने खालको आग्रह गर्यौं।
Chaos continues through the evening. By nightfall, Hundreds of buildings are burning. Banks and armories looted. More than 13,000 prisoners are broken free. 3 police officers killed and at least 50 more Nepalis are dead. At 9, the army finally steps in.
यस विषम परिस्थितिबाट राष्ट्रलाई शान्तिपूर्ण तवरले निकास दिनको लागि आन्दोलनरत समूहलाई आन्दोलनका कार्यक्रमहरू स्थगन गरी
आदरणीय आमाबाबा दाजुभाइ तथा दिदीबहिनीहरू 10 बजेदेखि कडा खालको कर्फ्यू लाग्ने हुँदा सबैजना आफ्नो घरतर्फ सुरक्षित ठाउँ प्रस्थान गर्नुहुन.
The army's intervention brought an end to 2 days of chaos and bloodshed. But many Nepalis felt they'd left it too late.
नेपाली सेनासँग प्रशस्त सैनिक थिए. सर्वसाधारणमाथि गोली चलाउनु पर्ने आवश्यकता थिएन. मुख्य सडकहरूमा 100 देखि 150 सैनिक तैनात गरे मात्र पनि पुग्थ्यो. यसरी ठूलो राष्ट्रिय क्षति टार्न सके. तर प्रहरी सबैभन्दा बढी मार सहेर बसेपछि मात्रै उनीहरू श्रेय लिन आएका जस्तो महसुस हुन्छ.
On the Discord channel, there were now more than 100,000 people. Just 48 hours earlier, they'd been planning a protest. Now, with the government deposed and the country in flames, they were debating Nepal's future.
Sushila Karki, a former Supreme Court Chief Justice, was sworn in after protesters forced her predecessor from office.
The peace imposed by the army held. On September 12, Nepal got its new Prime Minister, the first woman to run the country. Her task, overseeing fresh elections and an inquiry still ongoing into the events of September 8th and 9th. At the heart of that inquiry is a simple question. Who was responsible for the killings that set the country alight? Already, key people in the chain of command are blaming each other. Our sources say the authorization to use force came from Nepal's top police officer, Chandrakuber Kapu, call sign Peter 1. The police in turn say the decision came from the District Security Committee, headed by Chief District Officer Chabilal Rizal. Rizal has denied responsibility. So has the then Home Affairs Minister, Ramesh Lekhak. Even the former Prime Minister, KP Oli, refuses to admit any fault.
अनि जिम्मेवार हुनुपर्छ भने कुन देशमा जिम्मेवार को होस्? रङ्गभेदका कारणले घाँटी थिचिएर मर्दा राष्ट्रपति जिम्मेवार हुन्छ कि?
While police and politicians pass the buck, the families of those killed are mourning their loved ones. They're in no doubt who is to blame.
सबभन्दा हाम्रो चाहिँ दोषीलाई कारबाही हुनुपर्छ हैन मेरो भनाइ चाहिँ त्यही हो.
तपाईहरुले को दोषी देख्नु भएको छ तपाईहरुको नजरमा?
3 करोड नेपालीलाई सर्लङ्ग थाहा छ कि दोषी को हो भनेर अहिले नाम हामीले किटान गर्नुपर्ने आवश्यकता पनि छैन. अघिल्लो सरकारले मचाएको यो सबै दुर्घटना हो हैन. त्यो सरकारमा लिड गर्नेहरू को थिए ती सबै दोषी हो.
हाम्रो सपना सबै सपनाचुरै भयो. उनीहरूको लागि त एउटा विद्यार्थी गयो, हाम्रो लागि त एउटा संसारै गयो. भित्री मलाई रुनै आउँदैन क्या. मलाई गफ गरिराख्न मन लाग्छ क्या. यहीँ छ भन्छु अनि म उसँग गफ गरिराख्छु. कतिखेर आउँछ छिटो आइज मेरो मनमा त्यही मात्रै घुमिरहेको छ. स्कुलको ड्रेसमा मात्रै झचल्को आउँछ ब्याग बोकेर आइपुग्छ भनेर. मैले त छैन भनेर मैले एक्सेप्ट पनि गरेको छु. अस्ति एक दिन सपना देखेको थिएँ भगवान्सँग 2 हात थापेर मागेको थिएँ. यसरी आइज न भन्दै यसो गर्थेँ मागेको थिएँ. त्यसरी आएको त हुन्थ्यो